Live from Ogasawara, this is the Monster Island Film Vault bonus episode 4, interview with Ben Chaffins. Hello, kaiju lovers, and welcome to the Monster Island Film Vault, a podcast seeking entertainment and enlightenment through Tokusatsu. I am your host, the curator of the vault, Nathan Marchand, and today is a special bonus episode, for with me today is your favorite Tokusatsu writer, Ben Chaffins. Welcome, Ben.
Thanks for having me, Nathan.
Alrighty, but you're here for a very special reason. You have a new book coming out.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, what's it called?
The book is called Discovering Tokusatsu, interviews with the makers of Godzilla, Gamera, Ultraman, and other kaiju aiga.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I live and work here on Monster Island, so I've seen a lot of the things that you're talking about every day here at work, you know? So this is very exciting. So before we dive into this... No, Jimmy, it's all him. I didn't give him any research, okay? I mean, he probably could have consulted me if he wanted to, but hey, this is his book, his project. I don't have to be involved with everybody, okay? Neither do you. Okay, all right, Jimmy, yeah, I get it. You know, I did give one thing. I helped you come up with the title. I suggested a title, and he went with it, okay? That's as much as I've done. Anyway... My first question to you, Ben, is who are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself, because as well known as you are in the kaiju community, I'm sure there are people out there, including some of my listeners, who don't know who you are or your full backstory.
Well, a little bit of background about myself. I am a Kentucky boy.
I can tell.
Yeah.
I lived only a little bit north of you. I'm from Indiana.
Oh, nice. So I actually did not join the online community until roughly 2013, when I discovered the 2014 American Godzilla film was soon to be coming out, and I ended up joining Godzilla Dash Movies and SciFi.com, where I got to meet a now very good friend of mine, that being Jack Hudgens.
Yes, I had him on. As of this recording, I had Jack on very recently.
Yeah, he's a very, very cool cat.
Jimmy got into a bar fight with him, though. That was kind of awkward.
Well, you know, he's bad for that.
Yeah. Anyway, continue.
He started writing these articles and stuff with information that I was actually unaware of. And just being able to get to know him and to talk all things Tokusatsu, we just became friends from that point forward. And the old thing is, you know, you meet one person, then you'll meet 1,500 others. But,
yes. Trust me, I have been learning that. I mean, joining Twitter and all that wasn't new for me, but when I launched the show and started using social media to promote the show and got more involved with people online, and I started meeting people in the community, other podcasters especially, writers like yourself, and it's been wonderful.
Yeah. My first contribution to that website was the interview that I had with Yoko Higuchi on Shin Godzilla.
Yes, yeah, I've gotten to know Yoko a little bit online.
Yeah, he's also another cool person to chat with. You know, yeah. He's very laid back.
Okay, and so when was this first interview?
This first interview happened, God, I don't remember now. This happened shortly after I saw his announcement on Twitter about being involved with the movie.
With Shin Godzilla.
Yes. And it entered my mind. You know, I was thinking, I wonder if he'd be interested in a interview.
Mm-hmm.
So it was one in a million shot. I sent him a private message one day on Twitter asking if he would be interested in sharing his experiences about the movie. sure enough, he got back with me. He said, dude, I'd love to talk to you about this.
Yeah, I'm guessing that was probably, I want to say probably 2015-ish, because the movie came out in 2016. I don't remember exactly when they started production. And I forget, what did Yoko do on that movie? He's mentioned it a few times. I'm just trying to remember.
He was just a production assistant. Okay. So he was mainly helping out with the special effects and then providing drinks and food and everything else in between.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was your big break, so to speak,
Yep, that's where it all began.
Okay. And that was posted on what website? It was at Godzilla-movies.com, or was that SciFi?
Godzilla-movies.com.
Okay. And from there, you were with that site for several years, if I remember correctly, because when you and I first connected, you were still with that site.
Yeah. I started writing after that interview. And then, of course, I ended up leaving Godzilla-movies and eventually joined SciFi Japan, where I currently write now.
Mm-hmm. Doing a lot of the same things that you were doing for Godzilla-movies, right? Scoring interviews with people who've worked in the Tokusatsu industry.
Correct. So when it all started with Yoko, the next thing was Godzilla King of the Monsters, the 2019 film.
Mm-hmm.
And the same situation happened where I came across, let's say, 5 other people that were involved with the 2019 film. One was the extra that was cut from the movie, that being Xavier Frazier. He was the second interview that I was able to conduct. And because of their non-disclosure agreement contracts, they really couldn't reveal too much about the movie until after its release. So after Xavier Frazier, there was Alan Maxson.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Alan Maxson was the right head of Ghidorah. We were having the interview before the movie released, but at the same time, there was questions I asked him that he couldn't answer strictly because that movie was not released yet.
Yeah.
So after the movie came out, I was getting ready to finish up the interview with him until I met TJ Storm,
who played
Godzilla. And before I got to finish the interview with Alan Maxson, I went ahead and started interviewing the guy that played Godzilla himself. And, he was able to reveal what he could at this time because he had worked on the previous movie, also as Godzilla. After we finished that interview, he made it very clear, don't share this until this movie releases. He said, it's only a couple of weeks. Do you think you can hold out? And I said, well, yeah, of course. So I kept that interview private until the movie released. And the day after it released, that's when I published the interview with him. So, okay, the movie's out in theaters, and I moved back on to Alan Maxson and finished up the interview with him. But during that whole process, from that stretch of 2018 to 2019, there was also Jason Lyles, who played George in the movie Rampage, and he was also the middle head of Ghidorah, and he also played Rodan.
Oh, really? I didn't know Rodan had been done with mocap. That's new information for me.
Yeah.
Did he just do the face or what?
No, he did the full motion capture.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. After Jason Lyles, I discovered Richard Norton. Now, Richard Norton is the mocap man. He's been doing mocap for years now. As a matter of fact, I think he just celebrated his 20th year.
Oh, wow.
In mocap. So, being unaware of who these people were, I had to do some research before I started asking these questions. And I seen that Richard Norton had over 100 video games under his belt where he did motion capture for characters and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, I've got to make that part of the intro for this guy. That way people are familiar with who he is. So post the interview with Alan Maxson. Then I post the interview with Jason Lyles. And then post the interview with Richard Norton, which Richard Norton actually was the guy that played the left head of Ghidorah. The one that
Kevin!
Yeah, Kevin. They named him. He's Kevin now.
Well, it was actually the director who did that.
Yeah, and everybody.
He made this joke because I remember seeing it. Someone on Twitter, I think it was a month or two before the movie came out, asked him, "Did you give names to all of the Ghidorah heads?" And he said, "Yes, their names are Ichi, Ni, and San, aka Kevin." And it became this thing. But one of my first claims to fame, about a month or so before the podcast launched, I made this silly little video from when I had acquired a Blu-ray copy of King of the Monsters and was showing it off a little bit, and then made a joke about I zoomed in on what I thought was the proper head for Ghidorah, zoomed in and talked about how everyone loved the movie because of Kevin. And someone actually tagged, would you say it was Norton? Was that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tagged him on Twitter and in the for the video, and then he actually commented a few hours later, so I'm guessing he watched the video and he said, "This is Kevin approved."
Yeah.
It made my day, to say the least.
So once those interviews were published, I thought, well, what else can I do now?
As a writer, I know that feeling.
Right. So I also managed to meet another good friend of mine now. That man, Matt Burkett, he has his YouTube channel, Monstrosities, a blog of Tokusatsu.
Yes, I've watched it once or twice. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I've more than once or twice. Yeah, I've seen a couple of their videos, yeah.
Yeah, we get a little carried away with, doing the live streams and stuff, but he likes to brag about him buying Cheesecake and Eiko beverage and then rubbing it in my face, how he got his business card. And I'm thinking, sure, Matt, you just go ahead and rub it in my face. I see how you are. But I can't help but think that maybe he was also responsible for hooking me up with the next person that I interviewed. And this was like an end-all, be-all for people to interview, that being Norman England.
Oh, boy.
Now, yeah, for those who are not familiar with Norman England, he has contributed a lot to the kaiju community. His first movie set that he was not really on, but was somewhat as an observer for, was Gamma 3.
Mm-hmm.
And he was also involved with the entire Millennium Godzilla series. So I thought, okay, this guy's got such a background with these movies. I've got so many questions to ask him. So I hit Norman up on Facebook one day. I was like, hey man, I know you're busy. I know you got a lot going on. If you're not too busy at some point in time, I'd like to be able to interview you if you are interested. And he finally got back with me. And he said, yeah, I'm wrapping up such and such. How do you want to do the interview? I said, we can do it through email if that works for you. And sure enough, that interview took off.
Mm-hmm.
And getting the information that he revealed was just jaw-dropping. And that was another very proud article that I published to Godzilla Dash Movies. There's a good chance that I may be able to re-interview him more about his time on Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All Out Attack. I have to wait to see how busy he's going to be around this time next year, because next year is the 20th anniversary of that film.
Oh,
and I'd like to
do, yes.
Yeah. I would like to do a special about it because it's one of the more relevant Godzilla films today.
I would definitely agree. Your cohort G-Man wrote an article several years ago that saw something of a resurgence in interest recently, comparing GMK to Shin Godzilla, which was quite fascinating.
Yeah. He posted that article, and I recently went back to look at it just the other day, and it was already like almost 60,000. Some people have read it, and I was like, wow. But
don't get too jealous.
Jack, he gets to show me up a lot with this kind of stuff. So I was like, wow, that's awesome. That many people have looked into that. And he posted the sources for that article, which was something I thought was very interesting, because you could actually click on the links that he provided in that article, and you're like, whoa, wow. Jack knows what he's talking about.
Oh, yeah. I do that myself with the show notes for every episode. I list all of my sources, and if there are links to them, I include the links as well. So people can learn more, because there's a lot of information out there about the movies or whatever topics that I want to bring up in connection to the movies, far more than what I could cover in a single podcast episode.
Oh, yeah.
So all of that being said, so you've had a lot of high-profile interviews with people who've worked in the film industry, both in Hollywood and in Japan. So
Correct.
What led you to write a book? Because it is a little bit of a jump to go from essentially being a journalist to then becoming an author. Where did the germ of that idea come from?
Well, it wasn't peer pressure or anything like that. It just, when you look at people that have written books like Steve Reifel, Ed Gottschalk, August Ragone, Kevin Derendorf, and John LeMay, what got me was the fact that I wanted to follow in their footsteps, but I knew I wasn't going to make a book like what they had made. So I wanted to do something a little bit different with my book compared to those that have already put a lot of information out there in their books. So it dawned on me. I said, you know what, I'm going to make this book. And as you already know, Nathan, the book was originally going to be titled My Journey Through Tokusatsu. And I got to thank you for helping me come up with the title of the book. And just to let you know, you are an acknowledgement, and you are.
Hey, thank you, sir.
And you are in the conclusion of the book. I made a little sentence about how you helped me out with the title of the book. So
yes, he's stroking my ego. Leave me alone.
Is Jimmy getting a little jealous?
I think he might be. Hey, keep your finger off that button. The focus of this conversation is Ben, not you. Or me, for that matter. All right.
Knowing that I wanted to write a book about my own little personal journey, I figured, okay, I'll not really put my whole life story into it, but I will explain how I came onto the online community and how these interviews came to be.
Okay. See, yeah. I guess I had misunderstood exactly what the book was. I thought this was actually going to be your most popular or most important interviews compiled into a book. But no, you're actually saying it's more about your personal journey in the fandom as a fan and getting to all of these interviews?
Correct.
All right.
Even then, with each chapter, it's 19 chapters. I also explain a little information about each of the movies as far as leading up to the interviews.
All right. Are there a couple of tidbits from the book that you could share with us and everyone else here on Monster Island and everybody who's going to listen to the podcast version of this episode? So a little teaser of what we could expect reading the book.
A little tease that I can give is some stuff like how Shin Godzilla was already predetermined back in 2013. Ultraman, the Next and Nexus.
I know you love those.
Yes, I do. My favorite TV show.
I was going to say, if Ultraman the Next and Ultraman Nexus was looking for a stan, you are that stan.
Well, that's the thing. That interview with Yuichi Kikichi is an exclusive to the book because that is not available.
Really?
Correct.
Who is this guy? Because I'm sure not everyone knows who he is.
Yuichi Kikichi is the special effects director of Yes. So I was actually hooked up with him by Hiroto Yokokawa. Now, Hiroto Yokokawa is the director of Nezra 1964, the upcoming tokusatsu film that's set to release in December, Japan this year. It's the giant rat movie.
Yeah. Isn't that actually more about people trying to make that movie? I'm a little confused on that.
The interview with Hiroto is basically what his plans were on how to make the movie, how much the budget was. We also talk about Yukijiro Hotaru, the actor that is most famously known for his comedic roles in the Gamera trilogy of the 90s.
Oh, yeah. Was he the cop?
No, he was, I don't want to say professor. He was Osaka.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, actually, he was a cop. He was a cop in number 2, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, or a security guard.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
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 We talked about him for a little bit. He also explained to me about taking the model of Nezra and how they basically made the suit and stuff with it.
Mm-hmm.
I asked Hiroto one day, I said, do you know anybody that may have worked on Ultraman the Next that would be interested in having an interview? He said, yeah, I know Yuichi Kikichi, who is the special effects director. He is a good acquaintance of mine. The minute he said that, I fell out of my chair. I was like, oh, my God. You know?
Yeah.
So
I get to interview somebody who worked on my favorite movie? Yes.
Yeah, really. So that interview with Yuichi Kikichi being exclusive to the book, to drop a little tease about that, one of the questions I asked him about Ultraman the Next, you know, the production aspects, his response was like 3 paragraphs long.
Did you do this interview over email?
Yes.
Okay. So he typed out 3 paragraphs just to answer one question. Dang, you must have had a lot to say.
Yeah.
So is this book a combination of personal stories and interviews, or is that the only interview that's going to be in it?
Well, you know, it's the personal journey and how these interviews came to be.
Mm-hmm.
And you got the 19 chapters to look at.
Mm-hmm.
So each chapter is its own interview and its own different movie or even TV series.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I may know the answer to this already, but which chapter is your favorite?
All of them.
Oh, all of them. See, that's a good response.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I got to talk with Yoko. You know, he was the first person I interviewed. And he, you know, was involved with my second favorite Godzilla movie. So that meant a lot to me then. And it still does today.
Mm-hmm.
But when I scored the interview with Yuichi Kikichi, I thought, okay, maybe this is where everything stops. I thought this was going to be the last guy I ever got to interview, and I wanted to make it as good and as detailed as I possibly could. But it wasn't the last one. Needless to say, more and more piled up. As of right now, I have 3 more interviews lined up to the side.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I thought about including them in this book, but I said no, because if I need to do a second edition, I can add them then.
Oh, there you go.
Or if I wanted to make another book and put those interviews in it, that would be a possibility too.
Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming that a lot of the people you've interviewed have been Japanese. So do you have to work with a translator, an interpreter when you're doing these interviews, or do your interviewees know enough English that they're able to communicate with you? Or do you have someone translate their responses?
Well, I have actually been studying the Japanese language since 2016. So knowing what little Japanese I do know, I was able to make the translations out myself.
Oh, wow.
However, there was some kanji that they had put in their responses that I was a little bit unfamiliar with. So I had to use Google Translate just to make sure I was getting that little bit right.
Wow. I've done some similar things. I asked John LeMay once while I was doing research for a G-Fest panel, and they said, what are some good places I could go to get information? Because, you know, John seems to know all the places to go to for this stuff. He has a lot of connections. And he said, I go to Japanese Wikipedia and use the translate feature on, I think it was Chrome, to translate it. And I'm like, really? Okay, and I went and tried it, and I will tell you, Google Translate's a little weird. Some of those things came out kind of odd.
Yeah. And that's the hard thing, too, about the Japanese language, because one thing in Japanese can mean like three things in English.
Yep. I mean, just for example, Shin in Shin Godzilla, I think I've heard at least 4 different possible translations for Shin in that title, all of which to one level or another could be applicable.
All right.
Because it could be new, it could be God. Some person even said that it could be translated as evil. And I'm just okay, this title might be genius or it could also mean true. I mean, there's a lot a lot of possibilities.
I'm sure that John LeMay listens to your podcast, correct?
I know he's listened to at least some of it. I don't know how many episodes he's actually listened to.
Okay. Well, if he happens to listen to this one, John, I need to thank you from the bottom of my heart for not only helping out with lending a hand and making the PDF of this book, but for also making that beautiful, simplistic book cover.
Mm-hmm. The cover is nice.
Yes, it took my breath away when I looked at it when he sent it to me.
Mm-hmm. I can tell you from my own experience that getting the cover for your book from the publisher or whatnot after they've done it is very exciting. I will never forget when that happened for me the first time. But yeah, that's a very exciting moment. So when will the book be out?
I will actually be submitting the PDFs to Amazon on July 29th, and I'm hoping that if all goes according to plan, I can get a August release.
So you are self-publishing this?
Correct.
All right. Yeah, I've done self-publishing work as well, so I know all about that. You got to do a lot of stuff yourself, and I don't think people appreciate the amount of hard work that needs to go into making a good self-published book. I mean, there's a lot of self-published books out there, but the cream always rises to the top, and the best ones require the most work. And
yeah.
So I know you've had people edit the book for you. You had John do the cover. Have you done everything else for it? The interior design and all of that?
John actually helped out with the interior design. Okay. But yeah, everything else that is in that book is my own.
Okay. That's exciting. So we should probably be seeing it around August. The podcast version of this episode should be out around the time that you actually submit the final PDF. So it'll be perfect timing.
Yeah.
So can we expect there to be a future book from Mr. Chaffins?
Well, I would like to make the first ever English book on the Gamera series.
Yes, please do. I want there to be something in English that's like the David Callett book on the Godzilla movies, but about Gamera, because that would come in very handy for me on this podcast.
But the thing that may be the roadblock with that book would be Kadokawa, because they own the rights to Gamera as of right now. And say I go to publish this book without the approval of them, who's to say, hey, they're going to see that and say, you need to stop publishing this book now, and you're going to get sued.
Yeah, there are times I'm amazed that David Callett was able to get his Godzilla book published.
Well, there was a similar thing that happened with Ed Gottschalk back in about 1994, 1995, with his book, The Illustrated Encyclopedia of Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
There was only 1,000 copies, to my understanding, that were sold. And I've heard various things about why it had to be stopped. One of which that I heard was that Toho themselves stepped in and said, you need to stop this.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Although, I would say it might bode well for you, considering how generous Kadokawa has been with Arrow Video with their upcoming Blu-ray set. So maybe they would be willing to be generous with you.
They don't know me either. And besides that, that's a distribution company.
This is true. But still, I would jump at that book as soon as you had it published. I mean, you have a guaranteed sale with that Gamera book as soon as you get it done, man. I have a bit of a reputation for doing copious amounts of research for every episode of my podcast. You should hear Jimmy's stories about the amount of time that I spend researching, and then he does his own research for his blogs and stuff like that. But so I know all about it. I'm sure you've done a very similar thing yourself with this book and with all the work that you've been doing on all of these multiple websites. So one last thing, I know the book is your big focus right now, but what will be the next interview or article or whatnot that you have on SciFi Japan?
Well, I have a couple interview articles already submitted to Keith Aiken of SciFi Japan. And one of the last ones there was two of them that actually recently just went up. That was the interview with Akira Ohashi on the Heisei Gamera trilogy about his suit acting career with the Gamera suits and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one that recently went up was with Minoru Kawasaki on his new upcoming movie, that being Monster Seafood Wars, or as they say in Japan, San the Kaiju Gourmet.
My comment when someone posted about that on Twitter was, "This remake of Space Amoeba is weird." Yeah, I have a feeling we'll be covering that one on the podcast at some point or another.
Yeah, but one of the other big interviews that I submitted to Keith was the interview that I had with Shizo Nakajima on the legendary Wolfman versus Godzilla project.
Yes, that I keep seeing clips of it, but it's like Gamera 4. I feel like it'll never see the light of day at this rate.
All right. Now, the thing with this interview, this article is actually in full English as opposed to the other Japanese interviews.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because Shizo actually knows very good English
mm-hmm.
with this stuff. So I hit him up on Facebook one day, and I asked him if I had permission to use some of the photos that he had been sharing. And he said, yes, absolutely, you can use these. So when that article will go up, I'm not sure. It should go up any day, unless Keith hasn't reviewed it just yet.
Mm-hmm. It's exciting times, man. You have so many great connections in the industry and in this community. I'm astonished every time you're posting on social media about a new interview that you've scored and all of that. I'm a tiny bit jealous, I gotta say.
At the end of the day, it's not to make a name for myself at all. It's
really
me. Right. It's me giving back to the kaiju community themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether people, like me or not, that's whatever situation. But I wanted to do something that needed to be done, and that was get out and get this information and put it out there so that people were aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, there has been a few people that I have reached out to see if I could do an interview, and one of three things happened. They either ignored me, never got back with me, or just politely said no thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Two of them, which were Shinji Higuchi and Shusuke Kaneko.
Aww.
Yeah, I'm a little bummed about that.
Yeah, I've met both of them, and thanks to G-Fest, and Shinji Higuchi he's wild, man. He's got some interesting stories to tell.
Yeah. I shot Shinji Higuchi the message, never heard anything. I recently contacted Kaneko and was telling him, hey, your Godzilla movie's 20th anniversary is coming up. I'd like to do a special about it. Would you be interested in being interviewed about it? Still haven't heard anything.
Mm.
But yet, Kaneko and I are friends on Facebook. So I don't know if he's just playing really hard to get or what.
I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, man. So one last question before we wrap this up. Who would be your dream interview? Like, if you could have the interview to end all interviews for you, who would it be?
Oh, man. Wow. There's so many, Nathan. Why would you ask that?
Because I'm a terrible person.
What? Well, I would want to. Oh man, you got me thinking here. I don't like thinking.
Don't think too hard.
I would actually say either one of them two. Kaneko or Higuchi. Just to interview one of those two about their work with the Gamera movies, their work with the Godzilla movies, etc. If I could score an interview with either one of those two, that's when I would say, okay, I am done with Godzilla. I am done with Gamera. Now, with Ultraman or even Super Sentai, that's a different story.
You've got some interviews lined up for those as well?
Not quite yet. I'm trying my hardest to get in touch with those involved with the Super Sentai series, like Zoo Ranger and Gosei Sentai Die Ranger. I'm trying my hardest to get in touch with somebody that was involved with them, and I don't see this ending anytime soon, but I would like to be able to interview people that were involved with the Ultraman series, just
of course
from the very beginning, even if it's Ultra Q. I'd like to start somewhere there. If I have to do it like what Mill Creek is doing right now, do old, new, I'd love that too.
Or reissue old right now, because as of this broadcast, they just announced that they're reissuing a best of for OG Ultraman that includes both the original Japanese and the dub, and they're including this never before released in the US special that was done to bridge the gap between Ultra Q and Ultraman. Yeah, so I'm kind of wondering what Mill Creek thinks they're doing sometimes, but who am I to question what they're doing? They're giving all of us loads of new content.
I know a little bit of ins and outs with that as to what's going on there, but unfortunately I cannot say anything. So, yeah.
You're like my intrepid producer. He knows a lot, but he can't tell me any of it. Like how he survived the war in space. He still refuses to tell me how he did it. Yeah. So at the moment, my theory is power of the retcon, and he just rolls with that. All right. So the book, again, is Discovering Tokusatsu and should be out in August. So, Ben, any closing thoughts for us? Anything else that people should know? Where can people find you online? How about that?
People can find me online on Twitter at the Big Bad Ben 90. They can find me on Instagram also at the Big Bad Ben 90. They can find me on Facebook. My full name, Benjamin Chaffins. I have my ugly profile picture up there, of myself. So beware.
Or you can watch that face live on Monstrosities. You've been on there a couple of times.
I also have an article out on the 14-minute short Godzilla film that released at the Subaru Museum back in 2019. My article with that is pinned on my website section with Twitter. You can also just go to SciFi Japan and look for the Godzilla Appears in Tsukagawa article. That's a good read for fans across the world. But yeah, other than that, that's it.
All right. And obviously you're still writing for SciFi Japan, so everyone should keep an eye on that website for whenever you have another interview article or whatever dropping there, right?
Right.
All righty. Tell you what, Ben, since you're really hoping to get that Gamera book done, how about once we're done broadcasting here, Jimmy and I, we can introduce you to Gamera. He's here on the island, get some first-hand information to include in that book.
Please do.
All righty. Well, thank you once again, Ben, for joining us here today. So, without further ado, cue credits. Thank you for listening to the Monster Island Film Vault, a podcast produced and hosted by Nathan Marchand. If you enjoy the show and want to join the discussion, we'd love to hear from you. So email us at feedback@monsterislandfilmvault.com. Your message could be read on a future episode of the show. Our website is monsterislandfilmvault.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Monster Island Film Vault, and on Twitter, where our handle is TheMonsterIsla1. You can also follow Jimmy from NASA on Twitter at NASAJimmy. I have fulfilled my contractual obligations. The podcast logo was created by Tyler Souls from TylerDrawsComics.com. Our theme song is Wanderer on the Offensive, live edit by B33J, Sarax, Juan Madrano, and Nonsensical Lexus, which is a remix of Counterattack, Battle with the Colossus, and The Open Way, Battle with the Colossus by Ko Otani from the video game Shadow of the Colossus. It can be downloaded from ocremix.org. All film and audio clips belong to their respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended or implied. The show is available on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, YouTube, and other fine podcatchers. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts to spread the word about the show. You can also support MIFV on Patreon. The Monster Island Film Vault is a Moonlighting Ninjas Media production. Sayonara!